Hello, this is Dr. John Y.K. Lee. I'm a neurosurgeon at the University of Pennsylvania, and today I'd like to tell you a story. This is a tale of two tires, and it helps you to understand why I, as a neurosurgeon, am still changing my own tires. I'm a skull-base surgeon, so the type of tumors I tackle are deep in the skull base. There can always be some serious risk that there could be a complication afterwards. Even if I'm not on call for that week, if I operate on a patient, that first 24 hours after surgery, I'm always prepared for some potential complication. So my first tale of two tires starts like this. A patient that I operated on with a skull-base tumor that was deep in the brainstem. After many hours of surgery, I then closed everything up. Everything's going smoothly. I went home and went back to sleep. Whenever I get a call from my residents, I know something's wrong. So I took the call, and this has to be at 12 or 1 in the morning on a freezing cold night. So my resident calls and says that, Dr. Lee, our patient has progressed into a coma, they're obtunded, and we just got an emergency CAT scan and it shows hematoma in the cavity of where the tumor was. We need to rush the patient back to the operating room. Now, I'm not on call all the time, but anytime it's my patient, I am ready. And if it's 1 in the morning, I will go and do the surgery. Now, this was in the wintertime. It was very cold. And I remember specifically, it was Dr. Sophie Su. She's a wonderful neurosurgeon. She is doing an endovascular skull-base fellowship. And I know she is super dedicated to her craft. In fact, one of my greatest memories of Sophie was that she could sit through my entire skull-base surgery, and at the end she's still asking me very detailed questions about what I just did. Why did I do this? And I could tell that she was continued to have incredible attention during the surgery, even after it could be 8 hours of meticulous dissection. And so I know that she's going to be an excellent neurosurgeon wherever she ends up. Sophie was just a young resident. She called me in, told me what was going on. The chief resident was driving in and ready to assist me with the surgery. So I jumped into the car and I started driving. Now, earlier, probably 2 days earlier, I noticed a check tire light, but I didn't pay attention. I was still working, running, driving. Now, oftentimes, for those of us who live in the cold, when the temperature drops, we know that the tire pressure will drop, and then you need to just pump some air into the tire. Well, in any case, I didn't do this, and so I went on, started driving into the hospital. It's freezing cold. I have just my scrubs and a jacket, and I hear the dreaded the thudding. Now that thudding gets me really worried. I knew instantly what that was. I had a flat tire. Now, I'm on the middle of the highway, 76. Now, there's not a lot of cars out there because it's cold, it's freezing, and it's in the wee hours of the morning. I believe it's probably 1 in the morning. So there's not a lot of cars out there, but I don't want to stop in the highway. So I slow down, and I'm driving maybe 40 miles an hour. I get onto 676, and I make it to Independence Hall because I know that at least on Independence Hall on 6th Street that there will be bright lights, that it'll be easier for me to park there. So once I get there, I park and I go out and take a look. And I can see that where the flat tire, it was the left rear, the driver's side rear. So I break out all my equipment. Now, I'm only about maybe half a mile from the hospital at that point. But so I call the resident, I call Sophie, I call my other residents and tell them to keep going, that if worst case scenario, I can just walk to the hospital. But I start trying to change the tire, and lo and behold, I can't break those lug nuts. Partly because it's cold, partly because I just have the factory provided. I was driving an Acura TL at the time. I just have the factory provided wrench to break the lug nuts. It doesn't have any extension. I try to step on it to get the leverage to open it, and I can't do it. It's freezing cold. I don't have any gloves either in the car, and I'm still trying to break open the lug nuts. before I jack up the car, and I can't. So I call a 24 hours, fortunately we have Google, I call a 24-hour service, and I'm able to get in touch with someone, so they're going to send somebody out. But my patient needs me now. This hemorrhage, the longer I wait, the greater the chance that she won't survive. So I call Sophie again, call her resident, the chief resident, and Sophie decides to come out and rescue me. She's my knight in shining armor. So she comes out, picks me up, and takes me to the hospital, and then actually she goes above and beyond. She meets the tow company, they change the tire, and then she actually even moves the car to the parking lot, and I don't actually know how she did everything because she was able to move her car as well. So real credit to an amazing neurosurgeon, an amazing person, an amazing resident, Dr. Sophie Su. But that got me really thinking. So I did the surgery and I was able to drive home, but it got me thinking. So what I did later, I went to Home Depot, I bought a breaker bar, or literally what I just bought was galvanized pipe that I could fit over the iron wrench so that I could get leverage. I actually ended up buying 3 of them, putting them in my wife's car, my car, and then we have a SUV that we use as the family car. So this gets me thinking, though, why can't I break those lug nuts? Okay, yeah, maybe I needed a breaker bar. But what I really realized was that today, everybody just uses an impact driver. When I get my tires changed at these places, they just and that can put so much torque onto the lug nuts that it's going to be very hard to break. They're not following the recommended torque specs or the torque specifications for your car or your lug nuts. So that kind of changed my whole practice. From then on, I said, you know what? I'm going to put my own wheels myself. And so for my current car, which is a Honda Civic Type R, I put on the winter wheels, I take them off, I put on the summer wheels. I mean, I might, if I get new tires, I will have Tire Rack do it, but I'm very careful now about those torque specifications. So that story is the reason why I continue to change my own tires. The life of a neurosurgeon, changing tires, changing his wheels from winter to summer. Thank you so much. Please like and subscribe. All right, good morning. So it's Sunday morning. I have my Honda Civic Type R. I got to change the wheels. I have winter wheels on, and I want to switch them to my summer wheels. I always like to wash them because they're going to be stored for several months. And I just think it's a good idea. I don't wash my car very often. I drive every day into the city, so. The brake dust on the Honda Civic Type R with the stock OEM brake pads, which I've replaced in the front before. I've never replaced the rear ones because you have to have a code, and I actually don't know how to do that. But I replaced the front ones, very easy to replace. But I replaced them with the stock ones. But the OEMs are massive amounts of brake dust. But that's okay. They work well. I like driving this in the city, even though it's stick shift, and some people think it's a pain. Oh, I'm not here to wash my entire car, but it's hard to ignore when the wheel wells and all this looks so terrible. So I'll at least get some of that done. Put some soap on this and at least get this front end. Oh gosh, I'm not a car nut in the sense that I don't clean these and clay bar them, but do have to do a little bit. I did learn the 2 bucket technique online. I hope this helps. I'm going to do this now, let it air dry, and then a few hours later, I'll come back to do the next one. Now, the rears don't get as much brake dust, so this is not as terrible as the fronts. One thing I got to worry about is when I put these on, they have different diameters. So they're still both 18s, but there's something funny about you need these hub-centric rings. I think I'm missing one of them from one of the wheels. I have to double check. Oh my God, this is so dirty. You may be wondering, why do I do this all myself? You know, I was raised an immigrant, and yes, I can outsource. You know, they say the most precious thing is your time. Yeah, but I also like doing physical things myself. I went to Ivy League, I went to Yale, I worked with my brain, but there's something incredibly satisfying about doing physical labor, about doing things yourself. And then this is what I realize is probably why I'm a surgeon and why I appreciate being a surgeon, because I enjoy the physicality of the labor, and I'm very fortunate. I found a field where I can be paid very well to do something that I physically enjoy. We were in conference the other day, and there are so many John Lees. It's an extremely common name. You know, in Asia, everybody has a very similar last name, but the first names are unique. In America, everybody has a first name that's the same, like John, Jack, Bill, but their last names are unique. So the mix of when my parents came to America and not really appreciating the importance of separating me, they gave me a great name, probably because John F. Kennedy was such an influential figure at the time, but also John the Baptist. My parents were Catholic. I ended up with the name John Lee. So John Lee is super common. I think there's at least 7 of us at the University of Pennsylvania in medicine alone. And so consequently, my email, the default email that they give me, is john.lee3. Well, there was some comment in conference, and my chairman says, John, you're John Lee 3 because you do the work of 3 neurosurgeons. And I said, thank you for the shout out. Now I've got to move you on to the next wheel. Now here, I have a massive dent, which is very annoying. But nothing I can really do now except replace that panel, but it's not cheap, and I consider it a battle scar. I have an off-roader that one day I'll show. This is an aside, but when I started CrossFit, I learned about the importance of the Asian squat, squatting as low as possible. And I've come to recognize that this degree of flexibility I have lost, because I live in America, and I have knee arthritis, and I've lost the ability to do an Asian squat despite my being Asian. But it's okay. Flexibility, mobility, you can work on these things. This is not lost forever. So I spend time trying to stay in that Asian squat. Well, this will be good. This is a good start. I'll move this into a different position so I can let it dry. And then when it's dry, I'll start the process of jacking it up and changing all 4 of them. I had a flat tire last fall, and I needed to get back to the hospital as soon as possible. It was early in the morning. So thankfully I carry a full-size spare, even though this car doesn't even come with any spare. Okay, so we're back, and it's now about noon, so I had a few hours, everything's dried, so now I can get back to work. Tires Plus won't they don't carry these tires, these sports tires, so I had to order them from Tire Rack. They delivered them. I had them mounted, but these are the originals. So I had a flat tire in the fall, and that flat tire, so I had to replace one of my tires in that wheel. I figured I might as well do two. So these are the two originals, and I'm going to put these in the front. So put one up at the front tire, and okay, so here's the plan. I'm going to replace my winter wheels there as the front, and I'm going to put the two new ones over in the rear. So I put a 2x4 in the back as a chock, and I'm loosening the lug nuts now ahead of time. Then I'm going to raise at the factory jack point. I don't know exactly how to raise it all up, both the entire front in one. This doesn't have like a front diff like my off-roader, so I do it this way, just one at a time. Now there's no safety the way I do this, because if my jack suddenly falls, I don't have the jack stands under the vehicle. Actually, if you know how to jack up the entire front end or the entire rear end on a Honda Civic Type R, please feel to put that in the comments or a link. I have followed Flying Gato. Alright, now I'm going to attach the lug nuts just loosely first, but I still use the alternating pattern, and then I'll final tighten once I get this thing back on the ground. I love the way these hydraulics release, and I love the way the vehicle comes down. It's always so smooth. Okay, so that's one wheel on, but that's not the final, because I gotta final torque them, and then I go drive around the block and then torque them again. But at least I got one of them done. So I just did one wheel, but now I need to do wheel 2, wheel 3, wheel 4. Not only that, each wheel has 5 lug nuts. And every time I change a wheel, I have to pre-loosen, then jack up the car, then loosen fully, and then I pre-tighten, hand tighten, then wrench tighten, then lower the car, then fully tighten, and then actually I'm going to torque tighten, and then I'm going to drive the car around and then torque tighten again. It's so many multiple reiterations of the same process that it can be very dull. And manual labor like this can be seen as something beneath the thinking man. However, if you're a surgeon, not only are we thinking humans and thinking caring practitioners, we are also masters of our craft. And mastery of your craft requires repetition and entering that flow state. I didn't find my flow state with the first wheel. And in fact, the first wheel I was pretty clumsy. But once I get to the second wheel, then the third, then the fourth, I started to enter my flow state. And there is a lot of analogies between our physical manual work and surgery. This is a good chance to talk about this book, Flow, by this writer, Mihaly, whose last name I cannot pronounce. And I want to thank Dr. Jacques Morcos, who introduced me to this book, who is now the AANS neurosurgical president and also chairman of his own institution in Texas. So in this book, the author talks about how we achieve happiness. We can seek glory, fame, money, etc., but we all achieve great happiness when we do things that allow us to get into this flow state, is how he calls it. And I'm sure many different religions and many different philosophers have considered this in various different ways. However, I like this terminology because it fits our modern day vocabulary, and it actually fits the way I think about it. Sometimes when I get into the operating room and under the microscope and I'm working, I lose sense of time. I remember the other day I knew I was doing a very tough Petroclival meningioma. I told the nurses and OR staff, please let me know when it's 9 p.m. at night. So I started I know I sat down in that operating room chair, and I didn't get up until 6 p.m. at night. So it wasn't 9 p.m., but that's when I got up at 6 p.m. And that was basically because the anesthesiologist needed arterial line access. Had they not done that, I probably would have kept going till 9 p.m. from 10:30 a.m. So that flow state is where we value and find greatest joy. Now, this is a tale of two tires, not just one tire. So, let's fast forward now about 5 years, and just the other day, this is the fall of 2023, I was driving to work. Now, the Honda Civic doesn't have actual TPMS, tire pressure monitoring system. It's got this kind of fake system that just looks for the balance of the wheels, and basically, I can calibrate it, and then it'll go off with anything. So, I don't trust that system as much. Well, in any case, I was driving to work. It's early. I usually leave for work around 6:05 in the morning because I need to get to work by 6:45. So this was a Tuesday morning. Tuesday mornings are extremely busy for me. I have a lot I have to get done early in the morning. So I need to rush. I'm driving my usual to work, and I hit a pothole. Now, the potholes are notorious in this area because of the freeze-thaw cycles. Our asphalt gets massive potholes. So I hit a pothole. I knew it instantly. I don't hear the hiss, but I can just tell this thing's going and then I hear that thud, thud, thud again. So fortunately, I'm in the local suburbs where I live. I pull into the gas station. I try to get help, but it's too early. There's no one there, or the guy who's sitting there can't really help me. He just stays in his chair. So because I'm prepared this time, within 15 minutes, I have the new tire on. I carry a full-size spare, even in the Civic, which only has space for a donut. But I carry a full-size spare so that I can do this. I change my tire, boom, and I'm back on the road. And I made it on time. So there's a lot of value that came from that horrible experience I had late in the evening or in the wee hours of the morning. And and actually, I've changed my tire in emergency fashion one other time as well. There's actually 3 stories, 3 tires. I was driving home on 676, and this PennDOT truck, something fell off the truck and hit this heavy thing. We don't even know what it was. Hit 3 cars. We all pulled over, and PennDOT ended up paying for all the damages. But because I had a full-size spare, I was able to change that and get home after the police came and took our reports, and then PennDOT ended up paying for the damages, which included body work. So, in any case, that's my story. The tale of 2 tires, actually 3 tires. Okay, so now it's time for final torque. Somehow I remember 94. I don't know, 96. Let's go to 96. Let's see. I hope you can see that. 96. Do them all. Now I'm just going to drive the car around, bring it back, and then retest the torque.